You know what's strange? We live in a world where everyone's chasing happiness like it's some distant treasure hidden at the end of a rainbow. We scroll through social media looking for that perfect moment, that perfect life, that perfect feeling. But here's the contrast that might shock you. The ancient Stoics, people who lived over 2,000 years ago, had already figured out something we're still struggling with today. They understood that happiness isn't something you find, it's something you build every single day with your choices, your mindset, and your commitment to inner strength. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his personal journal, "Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not." Think about that for a moment. The most powerful man in the ancient world wasn't focused on controlling his empire's happiness. He was focused on controlling his own response to life. This isn't about pretending everything is fine when it's not. This isn't about fake positivity or ignoring real problems. This is about understanding a fundamental truth that can change your entire experience of being alive. Your happiness is not dependent on what happens to you. It's dependent on how you choose to respond to what happens to you. Right now, as you're listening to this, you might be dealing with stress at work, relationship challenges, financial worries, or health concerns. You might be feeling overwhelmed by the constant pressure to be successful, to be perfect, to have it all figured out. But what if I told you that some of history's wisest people faced the exact same struggles? What if I told you they developed a practical, actionable approach to finding peace and strength in the middle of life's chaos? The Stoic mindset isn't about being emotionless or disconnected. It's about being deeply connected to what matters most: your character, your choices, and your ability to find meaning in every moment. It's about pushing yourself to be happy, not because life is easy, but because you've developed the inner strength to choose happiness regardless of your circumstances. See, most people wait for happiness to happen to them. They think, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion, when I find the right relationship, when I have enough money, when everything falls into place." But Stoics understood something revolutionary. Happiness is a practice, not a destination. It's a daily choice to focus on what you can control and let go of what you can't. When Epictetus, who was born a slave and later became one of the greatest Stoic teachers, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters," he wasn't speaking from a place of privilege. He was speaking from a place of deep understanding about human nature and the path to genuine contentment. Today, I want to share with you 5 powerful Stoic principles that can transform your daily experience. These aren't just philosophical ideas, they're practical tools that you can start using immediately to build lasting happiness and inner peace. Each principle represents a different aspect of personal growth, and together they create a foundation for a life of genuine fulfillment. This journey we're about to take together isn't about changing your external circumstances. It's about changing your internal response to those circumstances. It's about discovering that you have more power over your happiness than you ever realized. It's about learning to push yourself toward joy, peace, and strength every single day, regardless of what the world throws at you. Before we dive into these life-changing principles, I want you to do something for me. If this message is already resonating with you, if you're ready to take control of your happiness instead of waiting for it to find you, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment below sharing one thing you're committed to taking control of in your life. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. And make sure you subscribe to this channel, because we're going to keep exploring these powerful ideas together. Don't skip any part of this video. Each principle builds on the last, and by the end, you'll have a complete roadmap for daily happiness and inner strength. The ancient Stoics believed that philosophy wasn't just for scholars, it was for living. Today, we're going to prove them right. If you're ready to push yourself to be happy every day, type in the comments, "I choose happiness through inner strength every day." Number 1. Master your morning mind, the foundation of daily happiness. Here's something that will change everything about your day. The first 30 minutes after you wake up determine the emotional tone for the next 16 hours of your life. Most people stumble out of bed, immediately grab their phones, and fill their minds with news, social media, and other people's problems before they've even had a chance to connect with themselves. But Stoics understood that the morning mind is sacred ground. It's where you plant the seeds of either peace or chaos. Marcus Aurelius had a morning practice that's recorded in his Meditations. Every morning he would remind himself, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." Now, before you think this sounds negative, listen to the rest. "But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own." This wasn't pessimism, this was preparation. He was setting his mind for reality, not fantasy. He was choosing to approach his day with understanding rather than expectation. He was taking control of his mental state before the world had a chance to dictate it for him. Think about your typical morning. Do you wake up feeling rushed, anxious, already behind before the day has even started? Do you immediately start thinking about your problems, your to-do list, all the things that could go wrong? Or do you take time to intentionally shape your mindset for the day ahead? The Stoic morning practice isn't about meditation apps or complicated routines. It's about 3 simple but powerful choices. First, acknowledge that today will bring challenges, and that's normal. Second, remind yourself that you have the strength to handle whatever comes your way. Third, focus on what you can control in the hours ahead: your attitude, your effort, your responses to others. When you master your morning mind, something incredible happens. Instead of being reactive, you become responsive. Instead of being overwhelmed by circumstances, you become prepared for them. Instead of hoping for a good day, you create one through your mental preparation. Let me give you a practical example. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you start thinking about work or problems, spend just 5 minutes asking yourself 3 questions. What can I be grateful for right now? What one thing can I do today to move my life forward? And how do I want to show up in the world today? These questions aren't just positive thinking, they're strategic thinking. You're literally programming your brain for success and happiness. The neuroscience backs this up. When you start your day with intentional positive thoughts, you're activating the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and emotional regulation. You're literally building stronger neural pathways for happiness and resilience. But here's what makes this truly Stoic. You're not trying to control what happens in your day. You're taking complete control of how you approach what happens in your day. You're not setting yourself up for disappointment by expecting everything to go perfectly. You're setting yourself up for strength by preparing to handle whatever reality brings. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Your morning is the beginning of a new day, but it's also the end of yesterday's worries, yesterday's mistakes, yesterday's limitations. When you master your morning mind, you're giving yourself permission to start fresh, to choose happiness, to build strength from the very first moment you're conscious. This practice becomes even more powerful when you understand that happiness isn't about avoiding difficulties, it's about facing them with the right mindset. When you prepare your mind in the morning, You're not trying to guarantee a problem-free day. You're building the mental muscles to find peace and even joy in the middle of whatever challenges arise. The ancient Stoics lived through wars, plagues, political upheaval, and personal tragedies. They didn't have easy lives, but they had something more valuable. They had trained minds. They understood that external circumstances are temporary, but your internal response is a choice you make moment by moment. Starting tomorrow morning, you have the opportunity to join this tradition. You can choose to master your morning mind instead of letting it master you. You can choose to set the tone for happiness instead of letting circumstances set the tone for stress. You can choose to push yourself toward daily peace and strength from the very moment you open your eyes. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I master my morning mind and choose my daily attitude. Number 2. Transform pain into purpose. The alchemy of difficult moments. Here's a truth that might make you uncomfortable at first. Your greatest moments of growth and your deepest experiences of genuine happiness often come not from your easiest days, but from your most challenging ones. This sounds backwards to everything we've been taught about pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain. But the Stoics discovered something profound about human nature. We're not built to be happy through comfort alone. We're built to find meaning, purpose, and yes, even joy through how we respond to difficulty. Epictetus, who knew suffering intimately, taught his students, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." He wasn't speaking theoretically. As a former slave who had experienced physical disability and social rejection, he understood that life's hardest moments aren't obstacles to happiness. They're the raw materials for building unshakable inner strength. Right now, you might be facing something that feels overwhelming. Maybe it's a relationship that's falling apart, a job that's crushing your spirit, health challenges that scare you, or financial pressure that keeps you awake at night. Your natural instinct is probably to wish these problems would just disappear. But what if instead of trying to escape your difficulties, you learn to transform them into the very foundation of your happiness? This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending that pain doesn't hurt. Pain does hurt. Loss is real. Disappointment cuts deep. But here's what the Stoics understood that most people miss. The pain itself isn't the problem. The problem is believing that pain automatically equals suffering, that difficulty automatically equals unhappiness. When you transform pain into purpose, you're not minimizing your struggles, you're maximizing your response to them. You're asking yourself powerful questions. What is this situation teaching me about my own strength? How is this challenge revealing capabilities I didn't know I had? What kind of person am I becoming through how I handle this difficulty? Think about the people you admire most. Are they people who've never faced hardship? Or are they people who've faced significant challenges and emerged with wisdom, compassion, and strength? The difference isn't in what happened to them. It's in how they chose to let those experiences shape them. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, wrote something that echoes Stoic wisdom. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. He discovered in the most extreme conditions imaginable that meaning and even moments of profound peace could be found not despite suffering, but through the conscious choice of how to respond to it. This transformation happens through what I call the Stoic alchemy process. First, you acknowledge the reality of your situation without judgment. This is what's happening and it's challenging. Second, you separate what you can control from what you can't. I can't control this situation, but I can control my response. Third, you ask the growth question: how can I use this experience to become stronger, wiser, or more compassionate? Let me give you a concrete example. Losing a job is painful. It creates financial stress, challenges your identity, and can feel like a personal failure. But when you apply Stoic alchemy, you start asking different questions. What skills was I neglecting that I can now develop? What kind of work environment do I actually want? How can this transition help me align my career with my values? The pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes productive. It becomes fuel for positive change. This approach works because it gives you agency in situations where you might otherwise feel powerless. When you're transforming pain into purpose, you're not a victim of your circumstances. You're an active participant in your own growth. You're not waiting for life to get easier. You're getting stronger. The beautiful thing about this principle is that it creates a positive feedback loop. Each time you successfully transform a difficult moment into an opportunity for growth, you build confidence in your ability to handle future challenges. You start to see obstacles not as threats to your happiness, but as chances to prove your resilience. You begin to understand that your capacity for joy isn't fragile, it's anti-fragile, meaning it actually gets stronger under pressure. This doesn't mean you seek out pain or difficulty. It means you stop fearing them. It means you develop what the Stoics called the discipline of desire, the ability to want what happens rather than constantly wanting what doesn't happen. When you master this, you discover something remarkable. You can be genuinely happy even when life isn't going according to your plans. The ancient Stoics weren't just philosophers sitting in ivory towers. They were people dealing with real problems: political persecution, family tragedies, health issues, financial ruin. They developed these practices because they worked, because they created genuine happiness and peace, even in the middle of life's storms. Starting today, you can begin this transformation. The next time something doesn't go your way, instead of immediately asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "How is this happening for me?" Instead of, "This is terrible," try, "This is difficult, and I'm capable of growing through it." These small shifts in perspective create massive changes in your emotional experience. Remember, you're not trying to eliminate challenges from your life. You're trying to eliminate the belief that challenges eliminate happiness. You're learning to find purpose in pain, meaning in struggle, and strength in every situation that tests you. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I transform my challenges into strength and purpose. Number 3, release the need to control everything, the freedom in letting go. Here's something that might blow your mind. Most of your stress, anxiety, and unhappiness comes from trying to control things that were never meant to be controlled. Right now, you're probably carrying the weight of other people's opinions, future outcomes, past mistakes, and circumstances that are completely outside your influence. You're exhausting yourself trying to manage an unmanageable universe, and then wondering why you feel overwhelmed and frustrated all the time. The Stoics had a revolutionary insight about this. Epictetus taught what's called the dichotomy of control, and he put it simply: some things are within our power, while others are not. But here's where it gets life-changing. He said the things within our power are our opinion, our motivation, our desire, our aversion, and our mental faculties. Everything else, other people's behavior, the weather, the economy, the past, the future, is not within our power. Think about how much mental energy you spend every day worrying about things in that second category. Think about how much happiness you've postponed because you're waiting for circumstances to align perfectly, for people to act the way you want them to, for outcomes to match your expectations. This isn't living, this is fighting a battle you can never win. But here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to control everything, You gain control over the only thing that truly matters, your inner state. When you release the need to manage the unmanageable, you free up enormous amounts of mental and emotional energy to focus on what you actually can influence. Marcus Aurelius, who had the power to control vast armies and territories, wrote in his private journal, "Confine yourself to the present." He understood that even the most powerful person in the world couldn't control tomorrow's events or change yesterday's mistakes. The only moment where you have any real power is right now, and the only domain where you have complete authority is your own mind. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in daily life. You're stuck in traffic and you have an important meeting. The old you would spend the entire time stressed, angry, maybe honking the horn, checking your phone constantly, your heart racing with frustration. But when you embrace the Stoic approach, something different happens. You recognize that the traffic is outside your control. Getting angry won't move the cars faster. What you can control is your response. You use the time to practice deep breathing, maybe listen to something educational, or simply accept the delay and adjust your expectations. This isn't passive resignation. This is active wisdom. You're not giving up your power. You're reclaiming it from situations that never deserved it in the first place. Here's where this gets really profound. When you stop trying to control other people's behavior, your relationships improve dramatically. When you stop demanding that your partner, your children, your friends, or your co-workers act exactly as you think they should, you create space for genuine connection. You start accepting people as they are, rather than resenting them for not being who you want them to be. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, and this applies perfectly to letting go of control. The end of your need to manage everything is the beginning of your peace. The end of trying to force outcomes is the beginning of flow. The end of fighting reality is the beginning of working with it." But let's be honest. This is one of the hardest things to practice. Your mind has been conditioned to believe that if you're not worrying, planning, and trying to control everything, then you're being irresponsible or passive. Society tells us that successful people take control of their lives, and that's partially true. But the key is understanding what taking control actually means. Taking control means taking responsibility for your choices, your effort, your attitude, and your responses. It doesn't mean trying to control the results of those choices or the behavior of everyone around you. It means showing up fully to what you can influence and releasing attachment to what you can't. This practice creates a profound sense of freedom. When you're not responsible for managing the entire universe, you can focus on managing yourself with excellence. When you're not trying to control outcomes, you can put your full energy into creating the best possible inputs. When you're not demanding that life be different than it is, you can find happiness in life as it actually is. The practical application starts with awareness. Throughout your day, notice when you're trying to control something outside your influence. Notice when you're frustrated because reality doesn't match your preferences. Notice when you're stressed about future events or past decisions. In each of these moments, ask yourself, is this something I can actually control, or am I wasting my energy fighting the unchangeable? Then practice the Stoic pivot. Redirect your attention to what you can control in this moment. You can't control whether you get the job, but you can control how well you prepare for the interview. You can't control whether someone likes you, but you can control how authentically you show up. You can't control whether your day goes according to plan, but you can control how gracefully you adapt when it doesn't. This isn't about becoming passive or indifferent. This is about becoming strategically focused on where your power actually lies. When you master this principle, you'll discover something amazing. You become more effective, not less, because all your energy is going toward things you can actually influence. Number 4, Practice grateful perspective, the daily medicine for a happy heart. Here's something that will shift your entire relationship with happiness. You already have access to more joy than you could experience in a lifetime, but you've been trained to look everywhere except where it actually exists. Right now, as you're listening to these words, you're surrounded by miracles that you've learned to call ordinary. You have a beating heart that's pumped millions of times without you having to think about it. You have eyes that can process millions of colors and details. You have a mind that can imagine, create, and connect with ideas across time and space. Yet most of us spend our days focused on what we lack rather than marveling at what we have. The Stoics understood something revolutionary about human psychology. Gratitude isn't just a nice feeling, it's a fundamental practice for happiness. But they didn't practice gratitude the way most people do today. They didn't just make lists of good things and hope to feel better. They practiced what I call philosophical gratitude, a deep, intentional recognition of the abundance that exists even in difficult circumstances. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Notice he didn't write, "when everything is going perfectly in your life." He wrote, "when you arise in the morning, every morning, good days and bad days, easy seasons and challenging seasons." This wasn't conditional gratitude based on circumstances. This was foundational gratitude based on the sheer miracle of existence itself. But here's where Stoic gratitude gets really powerful. They practiced something called negative visualization. Seneca taught his students to regularly imagine losing the things they valued most: their health, their loved ones, their freedoms. This wasn't to create anxiety or fear, it was to create appreciation. When you truly consider what life would be like without the things you currently take for granted, you develop a profound sense of gratitude for their presence. Think about your relationships for a moment. The people you see every day, talk to regularly, maybe even get frustrated with sometimes. Now imagine what it would feel like if they were suddenly gone from your life. That ache you feel when you really consider their absence, that's gratitude trying to get your attention. That's your heart recognizing the value that was there all along, hiding behind familiarity. This practice transforms everything. When you regularly contemplate the temporary nature of your blessings, you stop taking them for granted. You start noticing the small moments of beauty that you usually rush past. You begin to see your ordinary life as the extraordinary gift it actually is. But grateful perspective goes even deeper than appreciating what you have. The Stoics practiced finding gratitude even for difficult experiences. Epictetus taught that everything that happens to you is an opportunity for growth. He said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." When faced with challenges, instead of asking, "Why is this happening?" try asking, "What is this teaching me to be grateful for?" Maybe a setback at work teaches you to be grateful for resilience you didn't know you had. Maybe a health scare teaches you to be grateful for the body that's been carrying you through life. Maybe a difficult relationship teaches you to be grateful for your capacity to love, even when love is complicated. This isn't about being grateful for suffering itself. It's about being grateful for the strength, wisdom, and compassion that can emerge from how you respond to suffering. Here's a practical exercise that will revolutionize your daily experience. Every evening, instead of reviewing what went wrong during your day, spend 5 minutes identifying 3 things you can be genuinely grateful for. But here's the key: don't just list them, feel them. Really consider what your life would be like without each one. Let the gratitude move from your head to your heart to your whole body. The first might be something big: your health, your family, your home. The second might be something medium: a kind word from a stranger, a beautiful sunset, a favorite meal. The third should be something small that you normally wouldn't notice. The fact that you had clean water when you turned on the faucet, that your car started when you turned the key, that you could read and understand these words. This practice rewires your brain. Neuroscience shows us that gratitude literally changes your neural pathways, making it easier to notice positive experiences and harder to get stuck in negative thought patterns. But beyond the science, there's something almost magical that happens when you make gratitude a daily practice. You start to fall in love with your actual life instead of waiting for some imaginary perfect version of it. The ancient Stoics lived through wars, plagues, political upheaval, and personal tragedies. They didn't have easy lives, but they had something more valuable. They had trained their minds to find abundance even in scarcity, beauty even in difficulty, and reasons for gratitude even in the darkest times. Cicero, the great Roman orator and Stoic practitioner, wrote, "A thankful heart is not only the greatest virtue, but the parent of all other virtues." When you practice grateful perspective consistently, it becomes the foundation for courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance. It becomes the soil from which all other positive qualities can grow. Starting tonight, you can begin this transformation. You can stop postponing gratitude until everything is perfect and start practicing it as a way of seeing the perfection that already exists in your imperfect, beautiful, challenging, miraculous life. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I see abundance and beauty in my life right now. Number 5. Build unshakable inner worth, the foundation that no storm can destroy. Here's the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. Your worth as a human being has absolutely nothing to do with your achievements, your bank account, your appearance, your relationship status, or what other people think about you. This goes against everything our culture teaches us about success and happiness, but it's the key to the kind of deep, lasting contentment that can't be taken away by changing circumstances or other people's opinions. Most people build their sense of worth on shifting sand. They feel good about themselves when they succeed and terrible when they fail. They're confident when people approve of them and devastated when people criticize them. They're happy when they're achieving their goals and depressed when they're struggling. But this creates an emotional roller coaster that never ends. Your happiness becomes dependent on things you can't fully control. The Stoics discovered something profound about human nature. True happiness comes from building your identity on unshakable foundations. Epictetus, who understood what it meant to have external worth stripped away, taught, "Wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants." But he wasn't just talking about material wealth. He was talking about the wealth of inner security that comes from knowing your value doesn't fluctuate with your circumstances. Think about the people in your life who seem genuinely peaceful and content. I'm not talking about people who are always happy or who never face challenges. I'm talking about people who seem to have a quiet confidence that doesn't depend on external validation. These people have learned what the Stoics knew, that your true worth comes from your character, your effort, and your commitment to being the best version of yourself, regardless of the results. This doesn't mean you stop having goals or trying to improve your life. It means you stop making your emotional well-being dependent on achieving those goals perfectly or immediately. You start finding satisfaction in the process rather than just the outcomes. You begin to understand that who you're becoming matters more than what you're accumulating. Marcus Aurelius, who had more external power and wealth than almost anyone in history, wrote, "Remember that very little disturbs us. It's our opinion of things that disturbs us." He understood that even with all the external advantages in the world, happiness still came from internal sources. He knew that building inner worth was more valuable than building an empire. When you base your worth on unshakable foundations, something magical happens in your relationships. You stop needing other people to validate you, which means you can love them more freely. You stop taking their moods and behaviors personally, which means you can respond with compassion instead of defensiveness. You stop trying to prove your value to them, which means you can focus on actually adding value to their lives. This principle also transforms how you handle failure and setbacks. When your worth isn't tied to perfect performance, failure becomes feedback instead of identity crisis. When your value doesn't depend on never making mistakes, you can take risks, learn and grow without the paralyzing fear of not being good enough. The practical application of this principle starts with daily self-reflection, but not the kind you might expect. Instead of reviewing your achievements or failures, spend time connecting with your core values. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be, regardless of what I achieve? How do I want to treat others, regardless of how they treat me? What principles do I want to guide my life, regardless of whether they lead to external success? Seneca wrote, "Every man is in bondage to fear who depends upon the whims of fortune." When your happiness depends on external circumstances, you're always at the mercy of forces beyond your control. But when you build your worth on internal qualities, your integrity, your compassion, your courage, your commitment to growth, you become truly free. This doesn't happen overnight. We've been conditioned our entire lives to seek approval, to measure our worth by comparison, to feel valuable only when we're winning. Breaking these patterns takes practice, patience, and self-compassion. But every day you choose to base your worth on internal rather than external factors, you become a little more free, a little more peaceful, a little more genuinely happy. Start by identifying one area where you've been seeking external validation. Maybe it's your career, your appearance, your social media presence, or your relationships. For the next week, practice finding satisfaction in your effort rather than just the results. Practice being kind to yourself when things don't go perfectly. Practice remembering that your worth was never up for debate. It was established the moment you were born as a human being with infinite potential for growth, love, and contribution. The ancient Stoics didn't have perfect lives, but they had something more valuable. They had unshakable inner foundations. They built their happiness on bedrock instead of sand, which meant that no external storm could destroy their peace. You can do the same. You can choose to build your worth on foundations that no recession, rejection, or setback can touch. When you truly internalize this principle, you'll discover the most beautiful paradox of all. When you stop needing external validation to feel worthy, you often end up receiving more of it. But by then, you won't need it anymore, and that's when you'll know you're truly free. Here's what I want you to remember as you close this video and step back into your life. Happiness isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create through your daily choices, your perspective, and your commitment to inner growth. The 5 principles we've explored today aren't just philosophical ideas. They're practical tools that have helped people find peace and joy for over 2,000 years. You now know how to master your morning mind and set the tone for daily happiness. You understand how to transform pain into purpose and use challenges as fuel for growth. You've learned to release the exhausting need to control everything and focus your energy where it actually matters. You've discovered the power of grateful perspective to reveal the abundance that already surrounds you. And you've begun to build unshakable inner worth that no external circumstance can destroy. But knowledge without action is just entertainment.